Hello and welcome to part two of our discussion series, Gracefully Embracing Chaos, brought to you by McKinsey Corporation. I'm here with co-owners of McKinsey Corporation, Jenny Dinnan and Katie Rucker. The topic for today is growing with purpose. Let's start, Katie. What's an example of a challenge or goal that you didn't think you'd be able to accomplish until you did? And then what's the main lesson or lessons that you took away from that experience?
Oh, I love that question. Let's see. So in 2014, I was kind of at a spot of feeling actually that I really needed to grow. And so I decided to sign up for a half marathon, which I had never really run more than probably 3 miles at a time. It seemed way too big, way too audacious to be able to do. But being able to have something that could push me and have a training plan, something I could follow, that I really felt just super proud of crossing that finish line. And it really changed a big trajectory for me. I've now run a bunch of half marathons and a few 24-hour relay races and those types of things. But really, I think the biggest lesson out of that is that the journey is actually probably like where the most growth comes from. It's not the one race and the 113 miles that you run. It's actually the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles that you run along the way. And just being able to believe in yourself that you can do something kind of bigger than you ever thought you could.
Gosh, are you going to ask me next? So I am not a runner and I have not run marathons, half marathons or otherwise. I think of just growing. I've got a sign in my office that says grow in grace. And so I think as we're growing and evolving and doing things, I think the question was, what was, I remember the question, but what's something that I accomplished?
So something that you never thought you'd do or didn't think you could do, and then you did it.
Right. I think all the time, I don't ever think that I can't do something, which sounds a little bit strange. Like a girlfriend of mine actually a long time ago, she said, how do you know you're going to be successful? I said, I don't know. I just do. One, I do think, which I know it's answering the question a little bit differently, but both of our parents were entrepreneurs. Obviously our dad started McKinsey. My mom, our mom owned Pacific Partners, her own company. So I think that they just kind of started going and doing things. I will say that I'm doing things that I never thought that I would have done. I never thought that I would own a company with my twin sister. I never thought that I'd be on board of directors I was on the Chapman's Business School board of directors. I'm on Team Kids board for nonprofit. I was on Girls Inc. I was doing these things, taking training classes that I never thought that I could do. I think that part of it, though, is when you start thinking of all the reasons why you can't do something, right? Someone says to me recently, how did you get on the board of a nonprofit? I said, I don't know. I just started volunteering, going and being part of things. So I know it's kind of a funny answer of that, but I think it's just starting the process. And now, having gotten to some things that now once I've done it, I think it's like the impossible seems impossible until it's done. I'm now realizing they're just everyday, ordinary people that are getting to be the president of a company or on these boards or doing things. Just start doing it and putting your all in there and seeing if it makes sense or not. So I know it's kind of a roundabout.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think your two answers hit two really important points, but kind of made the same point, is that with Katie, it was this big, you have the finish line, you've got to run the half marathon. And then with Jenny, you're not sure what the finish line is going to look like, but in both instances, it's about taking those initial steps to go do it. And it's the journey to get there. And I think that's a really important and valuable lesson, is that you just start, even if you don't know what that ultimate goal is, even if you don't know what that success or growth path looks like, that's okay. Getting started doing something is going to be the first step no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And so I think that leads great into kind of the next question that I had, is our discussion topic of growing with a purpose. This is something that we talk about internally and we talk about with our clients. But for someone who's on the outside who might not really understand what that phrase means, Jenny, how would you explain growing with a purpose?
Oh, growing with a purpose. Gosh, that's such a loaded, huge thing. Purpose just in general. I think that people think that this is this big, huge, audacious thing of like, what is my purpose in life? Like, it's got to be this one thing, I think of growing with purpose is being intentional about your growth path, right? It's kind of what we do a lot of work now in strategic foresight and future planning. And there's kind of two different scenarios here. There's the push factor and the pull. So we can sit here and we can just get pushed by what's happening. You know, I don't know, it's inevitable. It's inevitable that this is where we're going. We're in a global pandemic. It's inevitable that these things are going to happen. That is one way to deal with the future and getting there. And there's one way of dealing with growth of, well, I don't know, my boss says I have to do this. This is what came my way. So it's kind of getting pushed this way. The other way of doing it is getting pulled of where do I want to go? Where do I want to be? And then going in that direction. So I think growing with purpose is actually having a stake in your future, having like a reason why you're doing something. I mean, whether or not it's my purpose in life is to, world peace and solve world hunger. I mean, those are monumental, but at least if I can at least come down and say, I know that this is an area in my life that I want to grow and evolve, and I purposely am putting something out there to go that direction. So I think it's just having more control or more agency over your future and where you're going. We have the ability to affect the future with every decision that we make. So for me, growing with purpose is being intentional about what you're doing and where you're going.
Katie, to put a little bit of a spin on that is at the moment, I think as we all know, there are many businesses that are focused on just staying afloat. Mm-hmm. So a bottom line objective like revenue growth or new client acquisition might not be the most realistic objective for them. But in your opinion, what is a realistic objective that brands can focus regardless of where they stand currently? And how would that relate then to growing with purpose?
I love that. I think that one thing that we can all control, whether it's the sales are there or not, is really truly what's that experience for the customer. And so really making sure that you're leaning in and creating those true relationships with your consumers. And that could just be like how your customer service people are handling the calls that are coming in, how you're making new consumers feel welcomed into your family, into your brand. I think that there's so many cost-effective ways to be able to do that, and really thinking about what that whole journey experience is where brands should think and really focus right now. Because when we come out the other side of this, those are going to be lifelong consumers, and how you treat them today in the middle of all of this, making sure that you're building trust, helping to make sure that they feel safe and comfortable as they're engaging in your brand and taken care of. I think that that's going to speak volumes as we go onto the other side of this pandemic. So I think that that's really the biggest area that people should be focusing on, is not just on those new sales, but what are you doing with the consumers who you have in your pipe and in your kind of journey right now.
Jenny, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing of focusing on, which is switching a little bit, by focusing on your current customers that you have and or your new customers and getting really engaged with them, a big part right now, obviously, is having to pivot and figure out what coming out of this looks like on the other end. And the best way to figure out what your customers need when they come out of this is engaging with them today. Mm-hmm. So I think it's creating a relationship with them, talking with them, what's going on, what are their fears, what are their goals, like what's happening in their lives, so that you can wrap your current product or service tighter around them and or evolve and say, oh, they actually need this also, we can add that in. Mm-hmm. Which goes back to this growing with purpose. I mean, if you're focused on making your customers' lives better, easier, faster, whatever that is, you're only going to be able to do that by listening to them and then intentionally moving in that direction. And so you're following them with purpose of where you're going, as opposed to just saying, we just need to have new sales, new sales, new sales. If we're doing it with purpose and solving problems, we actually are going to come out stronger on the other end of that, which I think puts us in more of a control situation, mm-hmm. which I think leads to less stress, less anxiety, whatnot, out of the end of it. Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting that, for us internally, we always ask that question, why might that be? Or looking to dig deeper. And so when we meet with people who have the ultimate objective of saying, all we care about is revenue growth, or all we care about is this bottom line, and we ask, why? Oh, because we want to accomplish this. Well, why? Once you start digging in, you start to see that all of a sudden it breaks apart into these micro goals. And there are things that we have control of and that we can address now that don't necessarily have to be as audacious as or as broad as growth. and it can mean different things for different people at different times. So that I think that's a really cool concept and something that's important to remember.
Yeah.
You've both been involved with mentorship programs. I'm sure you can attest that it's a great way to grow as a person and as a professional. But whether it's a matter of time or availability or even comfort level, there's some people who are uneasy about committing to either being a mentor or getting mentored.
Yeah.
Based on your experiences, what would you say to somebody who is on the fence, who's considering either becoming a mentor or getting mentored, but they're not quite there yet and not quite ready to commit? Let's go, Katie.
I would just say jump right in. Like, there is absolutely nothing to be scared of. I wish, like, truly, I just actually signed up this morning with 2 new mentees through Cal State Fullerton. And I'm super excited. And I wish that somebody had said to me, especially even in college and a very early career, to be able to seek out opportunities to have a mentor. I think that I could see how I could have like moved forward faster in my professional career by having that. I just think it can feel scary of saying like, I don't know what to ask them. I don't know what to expect, but part of it is just going and being authentically yourself. And then I think it'll just start to like build and things will come out. So from a mentee side, do that, but also lean in and realize, even if you started with just listening to certain leadership podcasts, reading leadership books, taking nuggets and starting to figure out how to apply that into your daily life and try and test. I mean, the journey through kind of even growth with purpose is just trying things, right? Of being honest, of saying, I'm going to try this, and maybe it's not going to feel the right way. So then you tweak it to like what's going to make it feel more authentic. So I just think it's I have written on my whiteboard in my office, what's your personal growth plan, which is kind of the same thing Jenny was talking about, of really having to take ownership over that. And the faster that you can start utilizing tools that are there outside of the traditional education system of college or MBA programs and get life skills and soft skills help with that, I think it's just going to help you grow faster in your career.
I think as Kate said, I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what to ask. I don't even know where to find a mentor. I don't whatever. I mean, if you're in school right now, most of these colleges have mentorship programs. 100% take advantage of it. I don't think that I realized, my younger self or whatever, how much people more legacy, I say older people, but people with a lot more experience than me wanted to give back. Like, I didn't realize. I just thought I'm going to be, I'm going to bother them. I'm going to take up their time. I'm going to something. I love mentoring. I mean, I love giving back and I love talking to them. And so 100% lean in and take advantage of, and not in a bad way, but of these people that want to give and share their time, their effort. And I think also what I would say as a mentee, if you're a mentee, we've got 3 of them coming through, or internships, I guess I should say. We have 3 interns coming in from Fullerton next week. And I had 6 questions. It was like, what does success look like at the end of this? What do you want to learn? What's your passion? And there was a few of them that was really good that were very specific. I mean, this is what I'm looking for. One of them wants to be a high school math teacher. That is not something that I can help with, but we know somebody that can help that. I mean, not that I don't know how to do math, but I don't know about being a high school math teacher. But I mentioned it to Katie and she said, oh my gosh, I've got a friend that actually teaches people how to be math teachers. So we might not even, and that's one of my biggest things, is being kind of an includer and an introducer to other people. And I've said a few times, so even on the mentor side, originally I had thought, I don't know what I can teach these kids, or I don't know what I've got. Part of this is just the exposure of then introducing them to other people. So I have gotten people in, I've chatted with them, mentored them for certain things, and then introduced them to other people, which that is huge. It's the connections that we have. So I think I jump in. It's fun. Yeah.
And I think it's easy to say that on the other side, right? Like after you've done it, and then it's different when you're sitting there still uncertain. I remember back in one of my marketing classes in college, my professor we had a bunch of guest speakers who would come in, and they were local business owners, and we'd get to ask them questions as interview style, and he would always be very adamant about go talk to them after class, go get their information, start networking and building relationships with people. And I remember I never went up to anybody because I was afraid to, and I would play it off like I don't care, but really I was nervous and embarrassed and didn't know what to do. There was one woman who went in and she owned the sports market research company. And it was something that piqued my interest enough to where I did go up and exchange information. I ended up after college getting an internship there. I got a job there, and that's the path that started me to end up here today. And I'm thrilled with how that all worked out. But it all took just going up, talking to somebody. And when I walked away, you say, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. You know, people are there. People sign up to be a mentor because they want to be a mentor. It's not that they're getting pushed into it. So if you go up and say, hey, I would like some help, I would like your insight, people are going to be receptive to that. It's funny how that works.
And even with that, like those guest speakers coming in, they weren't even coming in to say specifically that they were going to be a mentor, but they're coming after work or, you know, whenever, and volunteering their time to come and share their story to the classroom, which means that they were 100% open to having those dialogues. But I know, because the same way, I was like, I'm not going to go up and talk to them, you know, and I think that's one of those things of just, the only way that things kind of get easier is that you have to take that first step. And that's, I mean, it kind of loops me back to signing up for that first half marathon. I actually signed up for that because I used to feel really uncomfortable in like big networking situations and different types of things. So instead of throwing myself into walking up to all these strangers and networking things, I thought, how can I start doing things that make me uncomfortable in a safe situation, in a safe kind of environment, get more confidence in different kinds of things, and then it's just kind of exploded on the other side. So it's having to realize that those types of situations, it really is safe because that person is coming in and volunteering their time. Like you could not get a better opportunity to go and chat with somebody because they are there saying, I'm here and I'd love to be a resource to help you on your journey.
So we've been talking a lot about the kind of person-to-person or interpersonal growth opportunities. What about, I know you both are big into reading and podcasts. When we look for resources for growth-focused content, what are some of your favorites when it's thinking outside of either the business-oriented or it could be business-oriented? What are some things that you guys are listening to or reading right now, Jenny?
Oh gosh, I've got a whole list of podcasts that I listen to, and it kind of depends on the day and what I'm doing. But I mean, leadership for sure, John Maxwell. I listen to a lot of John Maxwell. He is kind of the guru in that space, I'd say. I'd like to have like a mixture of different pieces. So podcasts, I just actually, the Future School, Wicked Opportunities. There's a really cool podcast that they just started of walking through the process. I've been listening to Blinkist. I don't know if you use it or either one of you, but it's kind of the Cliff Notes for books, I guess, main books. And so you can listen to a book within 15 minutes. So a lot of times on my morning walk, I will. But before I was very focused on what I was listening to. It was leadership, it was entrepreneur, it was certain things. Well, I've just now recently just started letting it pick for me, which is a really kind of random thing, but it makes me listen to books that I would never have listened to before. And it's a safe way of doing it. So it's 15 minutes. It doesn't take a lot, but kind of like history books and learning about different things and different topics. I think that's the biggest thing. Actually, even on this Wicked Opportunities this morning, they were talking about we need to be leaning into imagination literacy, which is kind of a little side note, but we teach in school and we teach people that you have to be very specific, right? About like, we're going to teach math and science and history and all these type of things. But what we don't teach is imagination of how to think differently, how to look at problems differently. So right now it's a lot about imagination literacy and going into the what if scenario. And I wouldn't have gotten into that world or even thinking about that. I mean, we're in a data space. So the thought of imagination literacy is, an interesting spot. So I'm just listening to different books and new things. Kate, I know we're always sending each other back and forth.
I know. I think, John Maxwell is a huge one as well. I'm right now geeking out about anything I can get from Dr. Brene Brown. I just love her concept around dare to lead and really leaning in about vulnerability and courage. and Brave Leadership, I just think is really great. There's a book, and I don't know the author, but Candid Conversations, I think, is another really great one. Radical Candor. Radical Candor. That just really gives some great tips on how to have different kinds of conversations. But then I also, like Jenny, listen to different kinds of things. There's one, and I think it's called Wild Ideas Worth Living, that is through REI, and it just talks about these amazing adventure stories, people who solo cross the, Antarctic, carrying their own stuff for however many, 50 something days. I just think for me, anything that's kind of related around those endurance type adventures, I keep thinking someday I'll have the guts to do some of that kind of stuff, but it's just inspiring listening to what people do. I think Jesse Itzler is just a really fascinating guy. He talks about building your life resume. Actually, I just saw him post something on social media that talked about how our 40-hour week, roughly. So even if we say we work 40 to 50, 40 to 60 hours a week, think about how many hours we actually have then that is meant to be able to spend on our personal time. And we get so fixated, but like 90% of our focus is on our work, but it really is actually a smaller percentage of our time. And so what are we doing in our lives to be able to build this amazing life resume? If you stop and break down how many summers do we have left in our lives, thinking about how long we have and what is it that we love doing, and we imagine and think about all the stuff we're going to do in our summers, but why don't we start incorporating some of these adventures and things that really set our souls on fire into our weeks instead of waiting until these bigger summer vacations or something? I think is just really inspiring too, because being able to kind of focus on your whole self, which comes back to the person, but focusing on your whole self and your whole life, I think can bring such inspiration back into your professional career too. So I don't know, those are just like a few that pop into my mind this morning.
Yeah,
make a list.
Those are great. Thank you. I mean, the idea just in general of growing with a purpose is so deep and broad. And I love hearing both of your insights and experiences around that. So thank you so much. It's something that we could talk about forever, but we're not going to. So thank you so much again. We'll be back discussing more topics. We are Gracefully Embracing Chaos, brought to you by McKinsey Corporation. If you have an idea for a topic or a discussion point, please let us know. Reach out to us at mckenziecorp.com. We look forward to seeing you again, and we'll be back.